Please welcome our esteemed speaker, Bill Lawrence, and his talk, Waltzing with Elephants. With a distinguished background in cybersecurity, including serving as the Chief Information Security Officer at SecurityGate and a remarkable military career in the U.S. Navy, Bill is uniquely qualified to guide us through building security programs for cyber startups. Bill currently resides as Chief Delivery Officer at Integrity Corporation, so get ready to learn from his wealth of experience and expertise. Welcome, Bill Lawrence.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bill Lawrence. Welcome to Waltzing with Elephants. As you can see, AI knows how to draw a nice little mouse there. In this case, the startup will be the mouse. The elephants will be some really large customer that you're hopefully going to get. And the advice that I'm about to share is probably more applicable to startups and smaller businesses, although in the mid-size and larger, you can probably pick a couple things out of there too. I know an earlier speaker did ask if anybody had a birthday on Friday the 13th, and there is one I know. Back in 1775, the United States Navy was founded, and on Friday the 14th, they had the first Liberty incident. So I'll be your dancing instructor today, talking about the moves that you need to make in certain order, variably there. Yes, I was a fighter pilot at one time in my life. That is actually me in 2004 in an F-14 Tomcat, the shiny white head in the front. I went from CDR to eventually NERC CSO. I had the honor of leading the electricity ISAC there. I was a CISO at SecurityGate, and now I am the Chief Delivery Officer at Integrity. We are a cybersecurity and consulting company with OT, primary focus in electricity, oil and gas, and healthcare sectors. So this is what I'm going to talk about. And if you notice, there's going to be a certain theme there. I really like HUSECCon's ability to grab the experience of folks and have them bring that out. I dressed up a little bit today. I figured there's a guy in a really awesome wizard's robe walking around. That's really cool too. I was a huge nerd growing up, watching all the good things like Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers. So I got to fly the X-Wing, or closest thing that we got to do there. So I'm going to talk to things today along this agenda in terms of taking you on a Dungeons & Dragons adventure. So along with that, those characters there are just called the crows, I learned. And then on this page, that's Thorb in the middle, Thera, and Doc. So you got the three people there. And good things do come in threes. I believe that. People, process, and technology. Every slide I'm going to talk about that. And one or more aspects, I'm going to try and deliver some insight there, what can help you in your journey towards security. So got those characters there straight from HUSECCon. In the middle there, any Evil Dead fans, Necromonicon, Ex Mortis, the Book of the Dead, and then down on the bottom, it's a little harder to see on the slide, Young Frankenstein, that's right, yes. So you got the tools, the technology that you're going to use to achieve your mission there. These are the things that if they're applied in that order all the time with the things that you want to do, you're going to have the most success, I believe, with your security program. So good things also still come in threes there. If you go for security, if you figure out the things that you want to do to protect your systems, protect your people, protect your technology, then you can get the compliance much simpler out of that. You won't have to go backwards and say, oh, well, we really are playing lip service to this. What do we have to do? Switches we have to flip in order to make that happen. And then if you get that compliance based on a certain regime, standard, framework, that's when you can provide that as evidence to those elephants and make yourselves available when they come asking security questions. Because they really want to know about your security. The compliance is just a way to show them that. So along the way, here you see Thera, Torb, and Doc up at the top. So this is definitely a slide to talk about your people. If you're small enough, you might have every job title. It might be you, yourself, at your own company, and you need to do something to make your company secure and show compliance. That's where you might have to dig up some other people to help you, because it would really be much more useful if somebody manages the project that you're about to commence, have a dungeon master, so to speak, and then have somebody else be able to go get the evidence, the pieces that you're going to need for the eventual audit. If you do have various functions within your company, that changes things quite a bit, because now you have other people to interact with. That's supposed to be zombies raising their hands menacingly, and AI decided to make it sort of a YMCA party there in the graveyard. But that's where relationships are key. For example, SecOps and DevOps, if one owns the infrastructure, like DevOps owns the cloud, and SecOps has visibility about vulnerabilities, and they don't work well together, that's a recipe for disaster. And you need to build those relationships so those things can happen there. And then also that sense of urgency needs to be there too, because if you are in a security mindset and finding vulnerabilities in your systems, you have to get those fixed within a certain span of time. And I'll talk about that briefly as well. So on this slide, we got the Necronomicon. So it's policy, process, the things that you're going to have to choose to go on with your adventure towards compliance, towards security. You can look at a lot of these things that we have up here as guidelines, which I'll talk here in a second, created by very, very smart people, often in very large groups, coming up with a very good consensus product that's going to work at a majority of your organizations. You know, for example, we all know and love NIST cybersecurity framework. It's coming out with version 2.0. It's in the process of doing that right now. You got the identify, protect, detect, respond, recover in there. Well, 2.0 is coming out with governance. And that goes directly along with this slide. Every layer there, they're going to provide examples of how you should govern that individual function within NIST CSF. They're also renaming it to officially become NIST Cybersecurity Framework, because if you look at CSF, it's, anyway, that's trivia. But again, NIST is offering this for free. You know that, you can download it, you can read the book, try to apply it yourselves, but there's no real compliance body over that. So anything that you're doing along the lines of NIST, unless you're in the healthcare sector, so that's where the high trust, they got Rev 2 out there. I'm sure they're going to have one with that marries up to CSF 2.0 very soon. That's actually a requirement by law. So depending on the industry that you're working in with your business, you may have regulatory requirements that necessitate the use of these documents to the letter. And that's where having a good understanding of it internally and then potentially getting outside help to help would be good. So defense industrial base, something I used to know well, CMMC, that has recently also undergone a great deal of change and churn there from 5 different levels to 3, and it's the dust is starting to settle. People are starting to get CMMC certified to audit organizations for CMMC. I know there's a couple of folks out there in the audience that do that kind of work. That again is something that is not for beginners. So as you can see on the right-hand side, is that your right? No, yeah. I got the Tomb of Horrors, great D&D module. If you really hate your players, take your people through there. They get totally wiped out several times. Expedition to the Barrier Peaks had a little bunny monster in it on top of a stump. It's like one of the dumbest monsters, but kind of classic there. And also had laser pistols that you could find in an alien spaceship. So that was a lot of fun. And then Keep on the Borderlands was kind of the easier module. So you see as we go down on the slide, I'm not saying that all these things are a walk in the park, but definitely the ones that require compliance by law are the ones that you need to pay attention to if you're in that business. Same thing, NIST 800-171, protecting controlled unclassified information. Hey, we've got classified, we got top secret, secret, classified, unclassified. and now we've got something else because we can't call it a classification. We still want you to protect it. It's probably become more and more vital in the age of AI because hoovering up a bunch of information, even if it's unclassified, can give a lot of information for an organization there. GDPR, if you're, got some hits from Europe on your website, if you got some probes, some people, emails saying, hey, we really love to do business with you, it's time to start thinking about doing GDPR and doing it right. So the earlier you pick that, maybe a co-module to run along with that, the better off you're going to be able to apply those types of controls along with your the other ones you're going to pick for your organization. HIPAA, again, healthcare there, protecting personally identifiable information. PCI DSS, that's the payment card industry. If you've got that sent off to a third party, yeah, hey, we're going to get all of our funds through them. Those are the kind of things we'll talk about on the third party slide when we come to that. SOC 2, that is something that in my last job, a lot of organizations were looking for us to have. We set out on this plan to obtain that, and it made a lot of sense to, especially as a SaaS company, to get this feather in our cap with the SOC 2 there. SOX and GLBA, public companies, financial services. You hope that eventually you'll be public, so it's not bad to dip into SOX there and figure out what the requirements are. But the first thing you do with any good project is have the end in sight. So you're hoping to get that AICPA SOC attestation. It is not a certification. It is not, they use a lot of different words, but an attestation from somebody saying that, hey, during this time period, you had all the controls in place and they functioned adequately. And then you can get a report out of that. And yes, AI did this one, and AI does not really know what a elephant totally looks like. So that's pretty good. But then you can dance with those elephants all day long, and we'll talk a little bit more about that too. But the key in getting something like this and starting at the end, say, hey, October 1st is a nice round date, because a lot of times it's the calendar year for some organizations, or it's the beginning of Q4. Let's end and let's have our SOC 2 on October 1st of next year, of 2024. Well, that means for the 6 months prior to that date, at least, at a minimum, 6 months is what organizations look for in a SOC 2 Type 2 report. You can do them for shorter, but they're not always looked at as favorably. At least 6 months worked well for us. You got to start with the monitoring and looking at those controls on April 1st, which means before that, you have to have all your policies and controls set up and formalized. You have to have a lot of other things, which we'll talk about here in a second, which means today, you'd be behind timeline if you want October 1st. There are some shortcuts, but shortcuts don't always work every time. So giving yourself some time to get this stuff established, especially with the workforce in your company and training, is important. So now, picking your potions. The SOC 2 is kind of low on that module list because it can be self-attested. You can hold up a report and say, yep, we say we are this good. And I guarantee you other people will start asking a lot more questions about you if you don't have a third-party audit and somebody who's independent looking at those controls. And even then, I mean, if you're saying that you're that good and you've got blind spots and they come out later, that's not good for anybody. So the way to do that is to have playbooks. There are vendors out there online that have a playbook that takes you through each module. You accomplish one task, upload the evidence into their playbook, a little confetti comes down, you celebrate in the office, something like that, and then you realize you have 158 more tasks to do. But it keeps everything organized. You can also, on many of those organizations, you can farm out the work to individuals so that you all don't have to sit there and do it together. They can do it on their own time and finish that up. And then templates. Templates are huge. for when you're writing everything down, trying to make stuff make sense in your organization, giving you something to start from, especially if it marries up with what their auditors are going to be looking for. That's highly important. And then also integrations. So that's something that's getting a lot more attention, especially if you're a cloud service provider, or not a cloud service provider, but you're a SaaS company. You can find an organization to work towards your SOC 2 and have integrations into your cloud environment, so you don't have to do a lot of yeses and nos. It can just take that information out of there. You can see what needs to be fixed, you fix it, and then that's what's going to be monitored for that 6-month period, as long as there's a bunch of green check marks. So the more integrations, the better. I do know that there's one organization out there, I want to say it's called trustcloud.ai. They're offering free SOC 2 to startups and small businesses. I have not investigated them whatsoever. I saw the free, I remember the name, but that's all as far as I went down that path. And I think they do say it's just basically all integrations. It just pull things right out of your cloud environment, which I kind of find hard to believe because it does take a lot of policy and training along these things. So then also, if you're focused on getting your SOC 2, there are 5 different trust services criteria that you might choose from. The number one, I mean, that everybody, it's kind of the default setting, is getting security. And that has the largest chunk of controls that is going to be looked at. But along the ways there, I wanted to set the bar higher. We went after availability and confidentiality as well. And those were just different additions into the playbook that the vendor provided to us. Privacy, definitely something you can do along those lines, especially if you're doing GDPR in parallel. Get that accomplished. And then processing integrity, if you're one of those folks that does need to do credit card sales and things like that, that's what that TSC would be for. So it's just one way to say, hey, I got a SOC 2 Type 2. I did it for 6 months. I got audited by an independent auditor. Oh, by the way, I got security, confidentiality, and availability. So it made the story really nice towards the end doing those things. Another thing that you can pick along the way, and I highly recommend doing this, is called a SOC 3. So SOC 3 report is taking all the information of the SOC 2, taking out the exact controls and configurations and all the proprietary information that would be potentially damaging to you getting that document just out there in public, and making something that your sales folks can say, hey, I just want to show you up front, here's our SOC 3, we've got a SOC 2 Type 2, if we do business together, we'll get you that too. But the SOC 3 is publicly available to share. You can go to Google or Amazon or anybody right now, download theirs. If you're a customer, you can request their SOC 2, and eventually they'll come back with a response, and you can download that there. But that's the difference. It's not like a whole complete different framework. It's just something that's publicly releasable. And yes, now the people grow. Haha. That's why I hate doing animations. Okay. So on to the things. Remember I talked about templates. On to the things that are going to be near and dear to you and the organization. If you look across the top, we've got people, process, and then it goes back to people and tools. So it starts with the people. When you initiate your adventure and you're going out there, you're going to be like, hey, we are going to get probably new, if not updated policies out of this adventure. These policies need to be living policies. They have to be curated. They have to have people who wrote them and understand them, things that are going to affect the business. And that's where it goes from the policy part back to the people. So training is a part. SOC 2 requires, anybody know? Security training once per year. If you're doing it once per year, you're compliant. If you're doing it once per year, you're probably not secure, at least with your workforce there. But then also the tools. So you go down this thing, information security policy, hey, how are we going to defend everything? Access control, yep, those are probably pretty well understood types of things. They give you templates. You take those, you make sure that you keep the stuff in there that their auditors are going to look at. But here's another opportunity for you to use experience in your group, in your team, if you have it. Or start using AI. How can I make this better? What things I really want to do, I'm going to articulate and make this document better, because this stuff is going to guide your business going through there. Password policy. Something in there. How many of you are using password managers in your business? Well, you can tell in the password manager if you've got it deployed to somebody and if they're actually using it. And if you say you're using it in policy, you better be using it in reality, because the auditors will catch that, and that will be potentially an exception. Data classification policy, so DLP, data loss prevention. This is something that if you start at the beginning and say, hey, we're going to label everything that we want just internal, we're going to label that internal. And everything else, we'll just not label it. Or maybe we'll label it the other way. We'll label anything that goes external, external. But you need to have understanding of the workforce, compliance with that, and then it makes it a lot easier to build those DLP rules so that stuff doesn't get sent out inadvertently. And it matters even more in this day of AI. Even with ChatGPT and the enterprise level, you have to measure that risk about data getting out. Physical security, acceptable use. Oh, backup policy. So a lot of other speakers hit this point home really well. Have a great backup solution. There are some out there, especially for SaaS, folks in the cloud and back office folks. You can get immutable, lower cost than AWS or Google backup storage that is by immutable. You can't change it. And it's very quick to back individual records up or the whole kit and caboodle. So look into that, because then if you get ransomed, you're kind of worried about what got out in terms of extortion, but you're not worried about restoring the business. Just go down to Best Buy, buy 10 laptops, and boom, you're back up and running. Log and monitor, risk management, change management. So this is good. You find a vulnerability. Your security team has that. We'll talk about that more in a second. But you and your DevOps team need to fix this. So in your policy about updating a vulnerability, think about the words there. So, okay, we did low, where we're just going to monitor that and keep it on the to-do list. Medium, within 30 days. High, within 10 days. Some examples from the internet. Well, what does 10 days mean? The key word there is if you throw in business, 10 business days. That makes a lot more sense. Because if we saw something today on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we'd lose if we didn't get things done on Sunday of the next weekend. So watch out for those little gotchas. Incident response policy. That's something that's got to be taken, exercised, at least quarterly if you can. Same with business continuity. And they can be kind of drills that lead one into the other if you're small staff and talk about those various roles. But have an understanding of what would happen if it's Christmas Day and a critical vulnerability came out that we needed to fix. Or we get a ransom demand and all our computers don't work. How do we communicate? Have a backup other than your Office suite and Teams. Oh yeah, responsible. Oh man, I've made more builds. I hate that. Responsible AI policy. So that's something else too. Your teams are probably already working with AI. I just suggested that you do it yourself with your policy. Have something in there about guidelines, about what can be posted, and then your DLP can be tied to that, and you won't be copy pasting into certain data into certain places. But yes, use AI, for goodness sake. So now, cast visibility, a great spell there. This is something that we got because we had pretty good visibility with our cloud capabilities there, but we also wanted to have another tool to kind of check and balance and have things a little bit better organized, get that whole inventory, build a network diagram, that kind of stuff. So looking in there. Also what you're doing with your Office suite, whether it's the G Suite or anything else like that. Endpoints, I guarantee if you're a small business, you're doing BYOD. So having policies to control the data that get onto your phones. Microsoft does that okay on cell phones, but you got to watch out for that. And then also there's some organizations out there like BitSite or Security Scorecard that do ratings of your website and other cloud-facing infrastructure. Those are the kind of things that you want to take advantage of. One of them is a little bit better in terms of freemium, but I'll leave that to the audience to figure out which. Integrations, again, so the SOC 2 organization that we were working with did regular scans with integrations that showed us if anything popped according to their audits, or was going to be their audits. So we were able to lock that stuff down, put that over our shoulder, and then just keep an eye on it as we continued along. The other cool thing that we were able to get from the company that we went for the cloud visibility with, they offered a SOC as a service. So if you're a small organization, you can be thinking in those kind of time frames, or the additional people power, where you can have analysts looking for stuff on your networks for you on the weekends, 24/7, and then if something pops up, that's when everybody needs to understand your incident response policy, so that when you wake up somebody in the middle of the night on the other side of the world, people aren't quite as angry as they need to be, or vice versa. All right, and more, yay. Tools, and yeah, I talked about the policy part. And yes, people, tell people. Okay, now we are. Non-player characters. This is what I call your third-party tools. You'll be up there. Do you know every single third-party tool that you're using in your company? Some have probably been bought on piecemeal to manage your website, to manage your CRM. How about LastPass, or Okta, or LinkedIn, or HubSpot, or Salesforce? Just those 5 right there, you're probably using some of them, and they've all been hacked in the last 2 years. So a lot of the credentials are gone, and they're somewhere on your system. Who uses these things? Do you have a full accounting? Do you have a business account with this? Do you have one, who's administering this program? Are you sharing? Are you sharing accounts with shared passwords and things like that? Especially if you're a SaaS company, you wouldn't want that to happen to you. So now, how risky they are to the business. When it comes down to a SOC 2 Type 2, doing a risk assessment had to happen at least once a quarter. You had to go high, medium, and low. And for the highs, you had to do a lot more work. So you had to go find their SOC 2 Type 2s and this, that, and the other thing. But there are other technologies can help with that. I know BitSight acquired third-party trust. That's one way to look at organizations all the time and see what's happening to them, third party and fourth party and fifth party potentially. And the things that you're using, you can better rack and stack in terms of the threats to your business. All right, we're on time. So, a great slide. Cast Fireball and heal, and Fireball again. What do I mean by that? Penetration tests. So, along the way, with that visibility that you've got, with the policies, with DevOps and the agreements, yes, we're going to remediate these things by our timeline and do it fairly quickly, sense of urgency. You can get to a position where your cloud environment and office environment can look pretty good. And at this time, this is when you find a third-party penetration test organization. Some of them advertise, full manual, and they end up being pretty pricey. Some advertise full automated, and they can be very quick and cheap. But are they really going to find everything? We settled on a hybrid version. We were very happy with. Wasn't that expensive, didn't break the bank. But they look at things, find stuff. Again, on the high, medium, low vulnerability, if they find any critical. And then when they do find that stuff, that's when you have to, heal. You have to send anything to DevOps. Hey, this was found on the penetration test. Please run it to ground. See if it either matters or it doesn't matter, or we can fix it real quick. And you want to do those during the observation period when you've got your best face forward with the controls all set up. If they put things in terms like with the OWASP top 18 or 20 and NIST, these are great. the organization that you're working with should be able to tell you remediation steps along the way. If your team isn't unsure about that, have a communication back and forth about how to get things fixed. And then also, some of the more advanced pen test organizations have what they call intrusive pen tests, which is cool because they really rattle the cage of what you're wearing, what you're got in the cloud. But you have to make sure that they are following the guidelines that are available on AWS or Google or any of your cloud providers, so that they don't go too far. They should know that, but just having an email trail where you say, hey, we told you not to go past this limit, it's all good that way. And then I mentioned the remediation. Again, it could be something that affects your sprints. It might take a whole upgrade to the cloud platform and something they just don't want to do. And that's where the buy-in needs to be back at the beginning with the leadership and say, yes, this we will achieve. So we need to rack and stack and move some of the business problems out of the way, potentially. You also get generally one free retest after you can ask for it on time. It's got to be generally about within 30 days. And once you get everything fixed, if there was a lot of stuff, which we were lucky, or not lucky, we were good. We didn't have a lot of stuff to retest. And then they only retest for the things that they found the first time. It's not a complete retest, at least in our experience that way. So now, the enchanted encounters. I was thinking, Tim, the enchanter from Monty Python would be best, but then I'm thinking, like, let's really go D&D, and let's get a beholder with all the eyes. Here's your auditor. It's audit day. What do they want? So this is a case of you've done everything in an organization's playbook. You've got all the evidence uploaded. You've been back and forth with the people that you're working there. There might be a disconnect between them and the independent audit team. I mean, obviously they're independent, but if those playbooks and the evidence you collected don't match up to what the auditors need, there's going to be evidence requests. There's going to be other things. And I'll tell you, we thought we had it licked early on in the observation period because their definition of the people that should be examined in the company were the ones who had direct access to the cloud. We're like, oh, that's just a handful. No problem. We got this nailed. And then the auditors come back. It's like, no, it's the whole company because we got to look for training. We got to look for adherence to the other policies. So be aware of that. This is also very important. And I've seen organizations screw this up before. You got to have a united front talking to the auditors. You have to be cool, calm, and collected. You have to answer just the questions, just the facts, and hopefully not open other doors of inquiry. And you don't want to get adversarial because they're the ones with the pen. So when they do get those evidence requests, that's when you get your team. You go and find those things as quickly as possible. You only give them back what they want or what you think they want. And hopefully that will be a check block. There are a couple cases of back and forth that were a little frustrating, but we eventually got through them. So now, exceptions. So system description misstatements, deficiency in design, deficiency in the operating effectiveness control. These are the different types of things kind of in the reverse good order that they might write down. If they find an exception there with the, let's see. So let's say you left something out from a policy on purpose. You say, hey, we're just going to do this, and they find it for some reason. They know this type of business. They know what you're supposed to be doing, and it's missing. Well, that could be a misstatement there. Designs of the controls, things that you don't have checks when people check into the company to get that security training. You don't have a way to audit that they actually got training. That could be a problem there. And the operating effectiveness. Hey, you've got a policy for password managers. Everybody should have that. We looked, and you only provided evidence that 10 out of 15 people are using the password manager. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to flunk the audit, but you want to have this stuff nailed before they arrive. So now the end is in sight. It is October 1st of next year, 2024. Do you have your report? Most likely not, because that was the end date of your observation period. You did the audit, maybe starting in August, but probably going into September, maybe even it's it carried over for us. We were still talking to the auditors in October. And then finally we got the report. People will be champing at the bit to get that. Oh heck, one thing I did forget to mention. Way back when with the spells page and all the policies that you had to write, once you get that and back and forth with your third-party provider saying, yes, these policies are good to go, that's where you can get a SOC 2 Type 1. That's a point in time where they say that your controls are adequate to cover the systems that you got. So SOC 2 Type 1 at that point, you're aiming for that time period of 6 months or more to get a SOC 2 Type 2. And then what's in the treasure chest? They give you the report. And the best report you can get in a SOC 2 is called unqualified. It's great. Woo, unqualified. But that means you passed in flying colors. Congratulations, you got SOC 2 criteria. Qualified, close, but here are some things that were not met. You might want to go back and do another, short SOC time period to clear that from your record. But adverse, yeah, things are in bad shape. You didn't meet most of the SOC 2 criteria. And then disclaimer of opinion is like, wow, you're so not good. We're not going to write you a report. So then what do you do with that? So yeah, I just mentioned the SOC 2 Type 1 and 2. Those are the kind of things that you don't just hand out wherever you are. They do include details of your business that you worked really hard to achieve, the controls that you have established, the policies that you have written. Not those. Those are under NDA, fine. You're in the contracting process with someone, you do the NDAs with them, they're good to go. But the SOC 3 is the thing that you can pass out like that. Now once you get that, several very large organizations were just like, fine, you got a SOC 2 Type 2, good work, talk to, everything's good. We'll do business with you. Others will say, oh, well, you got a SOC 2 Type 2, here's a security questionnaire. Some of them can be homegrown, so to speak. They come up with their own proprietary stuff, questions that they definitely want to ask about where their data goes. They might be a little bit different, but they might be, on the SysTop 18 and the first 5 especially. Seeing questions on NIST 171, and then also SIG and SIG Lite. That's where we're going to need a bigger boat. If you look at those, you get an opportunity to respond to those. Even the SIG Lite is not really a lightweight lift if they ask for everything within it. There are a lot of evidence requirements that are, I would say, well above average in terms of difficulty for an organization to deliver, especially a smaller one. But once you do one, then you're doing pretty good. You can answer those things again. They might want to talk to you on the phone. They might want to have a video call. They might even want to come and visit, see your security setup, talk to your team. Have a mentality about being helpful, but not too helpful, and give away the crown jewels anyway. And then, with the third-party tools in that aspect, I mentioned third-party trust. There are organizations out there that you can upload all of your questions or answer all these things. They're available, and then an organization would just ping into that, get your questions, and then you'll be, good to go. You don't have to be running a bunch of Excel spreadsheets down to fill those things out. And then, let's see. All right, we're doing good. And then what's next? You are done with your adventure, you're in the tavern, you're all fat and happy, and there's a dragon looking over the shoulder, because once you start getting on the SOC 2 bandwagon, it's annual after that. So it might be easy. You might want to stay with your same provider. They've got a lot of evidence from you. They've got a lot of answers. They might have the same controls, might have the same monitors. But if not, you want to switch to somebody else, you might have to do everything all over again, and that can be challenging. So, what questions might you have? Perfect timing. In the grand scheme of things, security is what you want. And if you can make the security decisions that help your business, and then write them down in a way that everybody can comply with them, with the tools that you have, then you're doing better than a lot of the organizations that are out there right now that are just doing everything piecemeal and hunting and gathering tools and then trying to fill stuff in from behind. So, thanks for your time.